When you think of professional wrestling, you think of the wrestlers. Names like Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, MJF, Becky Lynch, and countless others are the faces of the industry. For the casual fan, these wrestlers are the stars of the show, the main attraction, and the reason people tune in every week and buy tickets to live events. But behind every championship reign, every shocking return, every heel turn, and every classic match is someone else entirely: the wrestling booker. In professional wrestling, the booker is responsible for deciding who wins, who loses, who gets pushed to the top of the card, and what stories are told. In many ways, they are the architects of the wrestling world. While the wrestlers perform the story, the booker creates the story. A great booker has the power to swing the momentum of a company into an upwards trajectory, to rejuvenate an entire promotion and build excitement in their product. A great booker can single-handedly build stars and larger-than-life characters. A great booker can cultivate feuds that will stand the test of time, feuds that will be remembered for generations. But professional wrestling is not that simple. Take Vince Russo, a man who received heavy acclamation for his role in the creative boom of the WWF in the Attitude Era, a period regarded as one of the most influential in wrestling history, to a man who many see as the poster boy for the downfall of WCW. A man synonymous with the downfall of an entire company. Why does this keep happening? Why do so many successful wrestling bookers struggle to maintain long-term success? Is it simply a coincidence? Or is there something about professional wrestling booking itself that makes creative decline inevitable? This is what I call the wrestling booker problem. And to explore this idea, we are going to examine the most prominent booker in professional wrestling today, WWE Chief Content Officer and Head of Creative, Triple H. We will look at the highs and lows of his creative reign in charge of the main roster, and ask whether the man at the helm of the WWE may be falling to the same cycle that has affected so many before him. In the summer of 2022, it was announced that WWE owner and all-round terrible human Vince McMahon would be retiring due to investigations into allegations of misconduct. This was seen as the end of an era. For nearly 4 decades, Vince had been the single most influential figure in professional wrestling. By 2022, fan sentiment towards Vince's creative direction had changed dramatically from what it may have been many years prior. Many fans had come to view his creative philosophy as increasingly stale, repetitive, and out of touch with modern wrestling audiences. For years, there was a running belief among wrestling fans that Vince would never willingly step away from WWE, that he would remain in charge until the day he passed away. For the first time since the early 1980s, the company was presented with a genuine opportunity for creative change, and the man tasked with delivering that change was Paul Triple H Levesque. Triple H's appointment as head of creative was met with incredible fanfare from wrestling fans all around the world. Triple H received genuine praise for many years for his work in turning developmental brand NXT into a great overall wrestling product, with a mix of new talent and experienced independent stars who would bolster the roster. At a time when the WWE main roster product sucked, Hunter's NXT was an escape for WWE fans to enjoy a good wrestling product under the WWE banner. NXT pay-per-views were widely praised too, with a high focus on matches getting sufficient time and allowing wrestlers to attain a platform in which they could show their craft. This is actually something that modern WWE is criticised on, but more on that later. Triple H's handling of the NXT product gave WWE fans faith and hope that the product could be fresh and enjoyable again. And they were right. The early months of Triple H's creative reign could hardly have gone any better. Almost immediately, WWE began to feel different. Wrestlers who had previously felt directionless were suddenly given purpose. Storylines were allowed to breathe, matches were given more time, promos felt less scripted, and beloved wrestlers were given another chance. For the first time in many years, fans felt that WWE was actively rewarding their investment rather than testing their patience. This was prevalent through the ongoing Bloodline saga at the time, a storyline that did start with Vince, but reached its true heights under Triple H. The storyline was heavily praised, with the term cinema being something that would enter the lexicon of many WWE fans. The story seen a massive change from Vince's storylines, with a focus on long-term storytelling and character development with a clear and logical end goal. For many fans, This was exactly what WWE had been missing for years, and as audience enthusiasm grew, so did Triple H's reputation as a booker. This was prevalent at WrestleMania 39, a show that rewarded fans for their patience and delivered on long-term storylines. Despite an ending to the show that received heavy backlash from fans, the show was generally extremely well received. However, the days following WrestleMania would bring a major development that threatened to overshadow everything that had happened inside the ring. In January of 2023, Vince forced his way back onto WWE's board of directors in an attempt to facilitate a sale, and in April of the same year, it was announced that WWE would merge with UFC under Endeavour, creating a new company known as TKO Group Holdings. Reports of last-minute script changes, rewritten shows, and Vince's growing influence behind the scenes quickly spread throughout the wrestling community. Any unpopular decision was attributed to Vince. Any segment that felt overly scripted was blamed on Vince. Any storyline that failed to resonate with audiences was seen as evidence that the old regime had returned. Whether these assumptions were always accurate is another question entirely. What mattered was the perception. By that point, Triple H had accumulated such a significant amount of goodwill that fans were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, while Vince became the convenient explanation for anything that they disliked. Post-Mania 39 and into 2024, WWE was still booming, and Triple H was still being heavily praised. Despite the looming presence of Vince, WWE continued their hot streak of momentum. Attendance records were broken, premium live events on TV were regularly sold out, and fan enthusiasm for the product remained at its highest level in years. Lapsed fans returned, word of mouth surrounding WWE became increasingly positive, and Triple H's reputation as a booker continued to grow. In January of 2024, Vince McMahon officially left WWE due to his involvement in the Janelle Grant lawsuit. Triple H had officially gained full creative control. What could go wrong? I mean, WWE was hotter than it had been in years.
In case you've been living under a rock, WWE is on fire right now.
Triple H had successfully navigated the company's transition away from Vince McMahon and was receiving widespread praise for his creative direction. The peak of Triple H's creative hot streak came at WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia, where Cody Rhodes dethroned Roman Reigns for his undisputed WWE Championship, bringing an end to a reign that started way before Triple H even inherited the keys to creative. A lot of fans described the moment as a perfect finale. For many, the moment represented the perfect culmination of Triple H's booking philosophy. It was the payoff of a story that had been allowed to develop over multiple years. The audience had been asked to remain patient, to trust the process, and in the end, that patience was rewarded. Cody Rhodes had finally finished his story. Roman Reigns' legendary reign had reached a fitting conclusion, and WWE had delivered. The interesting thing about the wrestling booker problem is that it rarely begins with a collapse. Business was still booming, arenas were still selling out, WWE was still the hottest promotion in the world. The first sign of trouble was something much smaller: criticism. Criticism is normal in professional wrestling. Every wrestler and promotion will be criticised at one point or another, but fans began to notice that a lot of Triple H's booking style was quite repetitive. Patterns began to emerge. A constant reliance on long title reigns, which many fans described as predictable, slow pacing, with the term "let it play out" becoming somewhat of a meme on social media, and faction-heavy booking, with a reliance on groups such as the Bloodline and the Judgment Day, especially in relation to SmackDown and Raw main events. Interestingly, these criticisms are actually things that fans wanted when Vince was in charge. Are fans fickle? Or do they just require fresh ideas and differentiation? This is a problem that many bookers over the years have faced, and that is what is so interesting about the wrestling booker problem. It doesn't matter if you're Gedo or Tony Khan or Shawn Michaels, once fans begin to recognise the patterns in booking philosophy, the door for criticism opens. We'll touch on this again later, but for now, back to our guinea pig, Triple H. Triple H received the most criticism he has ever received when it came to John Cena's final run in 2025. Fans were anticipating John Cena's final run to be something unforgettable. Dream opponents and matchups were named. One last career run for the ultimate babyface and ace of the company. But Triple H had other ideas. He turned John Cena heel. One of the most ambitious moves a wrestling booker has made in my lifetime. It was unthinkable that Cena would ever be a heel solely into his career, but they did it. The turn itself was excellent, and fans were excited to see what comes next. But that lies the problem. Did WWE even know what was to come next? It's pretty apparent that the sole reason that WWE did turn John Cena heel was for shock value and to build hype, which, in the moment, it did. But they had no long-term plan, and it was clear, heel Cena was never going to work. Yet they tried, forcing it onto people, and arguably, they ruined the last year of the greatest of all time. And that's the fascinating and quite funny thing. Triple H was criticised for being predictable, and then he made one of the least predictable booking decisions imaginable, and he was criticised for that too. But this move was just something that many fans would call unforgivable, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back for many. Perhaps for Triple H it was just a case of peaking early and not being able to find that recipe ever again. I mean, they say that the only place to go once you reach the peak of the mountain is down. But addressing the elephant in the room, I think it is fair to give Hunter some leeway. A lot of the frustration with the current WWE product is mostly due to the previously mentioned TKO group, rising ticket prices, increased celebrity involvement, and ads being placed everywhere from video packages to on the mat of the ring. So it is definitely harsh to blame Triple H for everything that's gone wrong with WWE in recent times. In making this video, I asked people on Twitter to give me their thoughts on when it all started to go wrong for Triple H and WWE. I received hundreds of responses, which was genuinely surprising, and the most common answer was around the Netflix debut, with people citing that they felt that Triple H took his foot off the gas when the overall deal was secured, which makes a lot of sense. Others cited Jey Uso winning the Rumble and Bad Blood 2024. It's interesting. For me, I think it's just a genuine combination of all previously mentioned factors. There's also a lack of urgency and care in the product. Absolutely nothing is must-see. In 2023, if I missed an episode of Raw or SmackDown, I would feel guilty and feel like I have missed out on something important happening. But now, I feel nothing. I can't even remember the last time that I felt like I had to tune into the product. So why do so many successful wrestling bookers struggle to maintain long-term success? Well, the answer isn't quite simple. Criticism is inevitable. The very qualities that make a booker successful often become the source of criticism later on. Long-term storytelling becomes predictable, patience becomes slow pacing, and consistency becomes repetition. The strengths that once made a product feel fresh eventually become familiar. And familiarity is dangerous in professional wrestling. Fans are constantly searching for the next big moment and the next surprise. The problem is that once audiences become familiar with a booker's creative habits, they begin to see the patterns. They learn the formula. They start predicting where the stories are going before they get there, and at that point, the booker faces an almost impossible challenge. Continue doing what made you successful and risk becoming predictable, or change course and risk alienating the audience that supported you in the first place. A lot of wrestling veterans have also spoken about creative burnout. Booking weekly wrestling is relentless. You are creating multiple hours of television every week, year round, often for years at a time. Eventually, even great bookers can start recycling ideas, relying on familiar acts, or falling back on formulas that worked before. As far as I'm aware, back in the day, many wrestling territories would regularly rotate bookers or bring in fresh creative voices, believing that even the best bookers would eventually run out of ideas if left in the role for too long. This could be a solution to stale booking, but wrestling bookers are far too egotistical for that to happen. Creative burnouts are just extremely common. I mean, it's a tough gig. We've seen it happen to Vince Russo, we've seen it happen to Vince McMahon, we've seen it happen to Gedo, and now, whether you agree with it or not, I believe that has happened to Triple H. Now, do I think Triple H is a bad booker? No, but I think he's lost the touch that made his creative reign so special in the first place. Maybe WWE's current problems have more to do with TKO, changing audience expectations, or factors outside of creative entirely. Or maybe the wrestling booker problem is real. Maybe every great wrestling booker just eventually becomes a victim of two unavoidable forces. The audience learns the formula, and the booker burns out and relies on said formula. For me, that is the wrestling booker problem.